Hi, thank you for watching. Today, I'd like to demonstrate with the chart of Kim Kardashian the timing of her father's death from cancer and also the timing of her stepfather's gender reassignment surgery. Some of the technical stuff that I'll discuss in this video includes the Profection cycles, the Triplicity Lords of the various signs, and for that, we're going to have to talk a little bit about the various levels of dignity. Modern astrologers use two, traditional astrologers use at least five. We're also going to talk a lot about the concept of sect, which essentially refers to the diurnality or nocturnality of a chart, its dayness or its nightness, which is among my first considerations. We're also going to use the Arabic parts. Specifically, we're going to look at the Arabic part of fathers and the Arabic part of death of fathers. And finally, we're going to discuss a concept that does not get anywhere near enough press, the concept of Eastern versus Western relative to the sun. So let us begin. First of all, I'd like to articulate the thesis of this video. And the thesis is that whenever Mrs. Kardashian West hits a 12th house year or gets close to her 12th house year in the Profection cycle, her father concept totally transforms and gets turned on its head, completely rearranged. Her first 12th house year saw her biological father, Mr. Kardashian, totally vacating the home. The second 12th house year, the age of 23, saw the death of Mr. Kardashian from cancer. And the third 12th house year saw stepfather Bruce Jenner transition into Caitlyn Jenner. So every time she has only had three. When she has, who knows what will happen when she has her fourth 12th house year at the age of 47. So why is it that her 12th house years seem to resonate so strongly with father? 12th house is not typically associated with father. 12th house is illnesses. 12th house is enemies. 12th house is confinement and being backstabbed and things of that nature. It's not necessarily paternal. So why do her 12th house years, why are they so redolent with father controversy? Well, in Kim's case, the 12th house is being accidentally determined towards paternal issues, because the Arabic part of the father is there and the Arabic part of the death of fathers is there as well. The location of these two Arabic parts in the 12th house accidentally determines the 12th house towards the topic of fathers. But before we even get to the testimony of the Arabic parts, let's just look at the house of fathers itself. It's in Pisces, the terms of the malefics in Pisces, with the moon conjunct the fourth house cusp. This moon receiving the trine from Uranus and Mercury in the 12th in Scorpio. This is a bad trine that afflicts the moon, in my opinion. But what really gets a bad result from the house of fathers is Jupiter, detrimented and exiled in Virgo, conjunct the midheaven. This is what really brings out some misfortune and causes a lot of instability in her fourth house matters. Of course, Pisces is a mutable sign, speaking of two or more than one of something, more than one father. Pisces is also a negative sign, a feminine sign, and so that sort of feminizes father. The fact that the moon is conjunct the fourth house cusp also feminizes father and injects some lunar qualities into the father. So if Mrs. Kardashian were to come visit you in 1981 with her daughter's chart in hand, you would be well within your rights to say, father is showing characteristics of mother here. Is father mother? If he's not, he will become mother, that sort of thing. Of course, once we do the Profection cycles, then we would see something terrible or something drastic, at least, happening to father like clockwork every 12 years when Kim hits her 12th house year. We would definitely see that. And of course, we would calculate these Arabic parts. So let's do that now. We've already have our antenna up. We're already alerted to the possibility that there would be some instability and some changeability coming out of the house of fathers, that father would somehow adopt characteristics of mother. So we would turn to the secondary testimonies of the Arabic part of father. In order to calculate that part, we're going to take the distance from the sun to Saturn in a day chart. And here we see why the considerations of sect are so important. It seems like it would be the most facile and basic consideration that you could make in a chart. Is it a day chart or a night chart, right? It should be like basic. It should be rudimentary to notice that. And of course, we can tell if it's a day chart or a night chart if the sun is above this horizon line right here, as it is in this chart. So the sect considerations of a chart determine the calculation formulae of the lots. It determines the sequence of Time Lords in various important Time Lord systems, and it determines the sequence of the Triplicity Lords, which we'll get to in a bit. So the part of fathers in a day chart is calculated by taking the distance from Sun to Saturn. This turns out to be 335 degrees of absolute zodiacal longitude. We calculate that from the ascendant, and the part falls at 18 degrees Scorpio, very close to the cusp of the 12th house, and in any case, it's in the 12th sign. So in every way, it's a 12th house entity. Okay, so the part of fathers is determining the father towards the 12th house. And this showed up very faithfully in Mrs. West's Profection cycles. Every time she hits a 12th house year, something drastic happens to the father figure. And that's because the part of father falls within the 12th. The part of death of fathers also falls within the 12th. We calculate that by taking the distance between Saturn and Jupiter. Okay, now we could just notice that 5 degrees separate them, and we could subtract that from the ascendant to get 8 degrees Sagittarius. But really, what we're doing is we're taking the distance between these two bodies, Saturn and Jupiter, and we are projecting these 355 degrees from the ascendant, and the part falls at 8 degrees Sagittarius, conjunct Mars, which is bad. Its ruler is exiled and detrimented, which is bad, and this is all confirming a bad result. Now, incidentally, the authorities in the ancient literature always said that when the perfection of years reaches the part of death of fathers or its lord, then the father is in danger. Okay, so this definitely applies to Kim Kardashian, because when her perfection of years reached the part, her father left the house, then he died, and then he reassigned his gender in 2015. The second father did. Okay, so these are the testimonies of the parts, the various parts. We see how the Arabic parts of the father determine the 12th house to the father, and then we see how the profection to the 12th house every single time denotes an extraordinary transformation in Kim's idea of what father is. So how else can this chart actually describe Mrs. West's experience of father? Now we turn to the Triplicity Lords of the House of Fathers. The Triplicity Lords are sort of like elemental rulers of a sign. Okay, I mentioned that modern astrologers work with 2 levels of dignity in a sign, and we'll use Pisces because it falls under the topic that we're discussing. It's the 4th house, House of Fathers. But let this sign be paradigmatic of all the others. Every sign has 3 Triplicity Lords. And the triplicity level of rulership is number 3 in the hierarchy. Domicile rulership is number 1. Jupiter is the domicile lord of the House of Fathers, and he is afflicted. He's in bad shape. We've seen that. The next level of rulership is the exaltation level. The exaltation ruler is Venus, at fall and weak. In the 9th house, she's cadent and retreating from the angle. The 3rd level of rulership is the triplicity level of rulership. We won't talk about the 4th and the 5th in this video for considerations of time. There are 3 triplicity rulers. And again, sect considerations determine the sequence that we use here. I would like to add that these triplicity rulers are very, very nifty in delineations. You can divide a person's life into 3 equal parts, and a triplicity ruler can be assigned to each third. So you can see whether that third of life will be prosperous or sluggish, lucky or unfortunate, whichever. You can see that from the triplicity rulers. And you can take the triplicity lords of each house cusp to determine what the thirds of life will be like for each of these houses' topics. Today we're talking about the 4th house. For the daytime triplicity of water, Venus rules all the water signs during the day, even Scorpio, wherein she's detrimented. Venus still is a triplicity lord of Scorpio. She's the ruler of Pisces on the triplicity level during the day, and Cancer. So she's the first triplicity lord, and therefore she shows the biological father, Mr. Kardashian. She's in the 9th house, and he was a lawyer. She's weak in Virgo, and he died prematurely from cancer. The second ruler of the watery triplicity during the daytime is Mars. And Mars is Bruce Jenner. Okay? Mars is Bruce Jenner, Olympian Bruce Jenner. Right? And interestingly, Mars is in Sagittarius, a sign classically attributed to dismemberment. Now, the third ruler of the water triplicity is going to be the moon, and she shows Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner after the transformation. Now, let's talk a little bit about what it means for a planet to rise before the sun or to set after it. Here is the sun, and this topic definitely does not get enough press. The concept of Oriental versus Occidental. Draw an imaginary line from 28 Libra, the position of the sun. Draw an imaginary line from the sun to its opposition point at 28 Aries. Everything on this side, the right side, all of this is rising before the sun. So let's crank this sun back down to the ascendant, but beneath it, let's put it, down here in the 2nd house. Okay. So 28 Libra would be down here in the 2nd house, and the ascendant would be up here somewhere. All of these planets, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, all of these in the dark early morning hours before the sun crests the ascendant, these planets would be visible in the sky. And for the ancients, this was absolutely extremely significant because you would be able to see Venus, which is rare. She would be in her own light, very pure and powerful, headstrong. Okay, same with Jupiter and Saturn. But these planets are setting afterwards. So let's go ahead and roll this sun over to the setting point, put them beneath the horizon, and then these planets would be visible in the twilight hours after the sun is setting. These planets, Mercury, Mercury, Mars, they would be visible in the nighttime sky. This was significant too. Now, being Oriental or Eastern of the sun masculinizes these planets here. But having these planets occidental of the sun, setting after the sun, this feminizes these planets. Mercury is feminized, ditto Uranus. Mars is feminized, and so is Neptune. So here we have now Mars in his guise, because he'll represent many other things. 5th house he'll represent, 12th house he'll represent. We're not getting to that now. That's off topic. Right now, Mars is a triplicity lord of the 4th house of fathers and is a significator for Bruce Jennings, Olympian Bruce Jennings. And Mars is slightly feminized, okay, by being occidental of the sun. Now, Mars is in a masculine sign. Mars is in a masculine quadrant. So this is a masculine Mars. Bruce Jenner was not an effeminate person. And yet, by being occidental, the effeminacy is there. It's embryonic. It's percolating, incubating over the years until it manifests in Caitlyn Jenner. And we can see this by looking at the fact that Mars is setting after the sun, because this feminizes Mars moderately. We would be able to see this from what's her name? I'm not a celebrity person. From Kim Kardashian's chart, we'd be able to see this feminization of Bruce Jenner, not Caitlyn, but Bruce. Before Bruce even started rumbling publicly about wanting to become a woman, we would have been able to see this. We would have been able to have seen this in 1981, before Bruce was even on the scene. Such is the power of astrology. I appreciate you watching today. If you have any comments or feedback or what have you, feel free to drop it down below. And I hope y'all have a blessed day. Ciao.